Today on The Big Story, Workers' Party MPs liable for damages suffered by Aljunied Hougang Town Council. The new Thomson Nature Park with a roadway detection system to help animals cross safely. And will Singapore finally secure a spot in the World Cup? A very good evening and welcome to The Big Story. I'm Haryanto coming to you live from the Straits Times newsroom. Workers' Party MPs have been found liable for damages suffered by the Aljunied Hougang Town Council. In a much-anticipated judgment released today, the High Court said Ms. Sylvia Lim and Mr. Loh Tia Kiang had breached their fiduciary duty. Mr. Pritam Singh, meanwhile, had breached his duty of skill and care in the hiring of the Town Council's Managing Agent FM Solutions and Services or FMSS. This resulted in the Town Council paying at least $33.7 million to FMSS from 2011 to 2015. Now, to tell us more about this, I have political correspondent Rachel Au Yong. Welcome, Rachel.
Thanks, Ian.
Now, Rachel, so tell us, right, as a start, let's unpack some terms in the judgment. So we have breaching fiduciary duty and breaching the duty of skill and care.
Yeah. Honestly, when you see terms like that, I don't blame readers if their eyes glaze over. So I think it's helpful to look at fiduciary as an individual who owes a strict legal duty to another person based on circumstances rising out of, they give rise to a relationship of trust. So you can look at a breach of fiduciary duty as a breach of loyalty. That might be helpful. In this AHTC case, WP Chairman Sylvia Lim and the former chief, Loh Tia Kiang, have been found to have breached their fiduciary duties when they hired FMSS as managing agent without calling a tender in 2011. Ms. Hao Wing Fan, one of the co-owners of FMSS, has also been found of the same breach. Meanwhile, there's a breach of duty of skill and care. This is part of a fiduciary duty, so you can see it as a slightly less serious breach. Mr. Pritam Singh and two other town councillors have been found liable for this because in the case of Mr. Singh, he did not question the waiver of the tender, so he didn't exercise his full duties as a town councillor.
And Rachel, of course, this case has been a long drawn trial, right? Over 17 days last year, 14 witnesses were called and questioned by lawyers, now resulting in robust exchanges and unexpected disclosures. So what was the judgment really?
Yes, so Justice Kanan Ramesh actually reserved the harshest words for Mr. Loh and Ms. Lim when he said that they had put their own political interests over that of AHTC and the residents of Aljunied GRC when they hired FMSS. So among other things, he said that they went to great lengths to keep the incumbent managing agent, CPG, in the dark while the takeover by FMSS was actually underway. So underway without a tender being called. And that he had also asked the owners of FMSS, so Ms. Hao and her late husband, Mr. Danny Loh, to prepare what he used a sanitized report on his appointment for a meeting with other town councillors. He also said they were dishonest and they went to the extent of misleading their fellow town councillors, and they were motivated by politics and a misguided sense of loyalty. So I mean, that's a pretty harsh judgment, you know. That was the bulk of the words reserved for them,
Right. And Richard, let's now focus on the amount. Really, you know, how much could they be liable for? Because the town council paid $33.7 million to FMSS. But it wouldn't be the full 33 million, right? Yeah,
so I mean, $33.7 million, that's actually a very eye-watering sum, but it wasn't squandered on nothing. It was not like they just took $33.7 million and then like threw it up in the air. Actually, the town council benefited from services. So Justice Kanan Ramesh actually pointed this out in his judgment. So, you know, even though you have paid $33.7 million, it's not like you had nothing in return, you got some services. So moving on, whatever the next stage now, it is up to the plaintiffs. So that means the town councils to prove exactly what is the loss. So it has to be $33.7 million minus the net benefit, the net value of what they actually paid for those services.
And then that's the amount.
Yes, but that's going to be another stage of the trial, so we don't know that yet.
But of course, at this point, it is unlikely that the judgment will affect their positions as MPs, as it arises from civil proceedings. Now, they can decide whether to appeal against the verdict, but on the horizon, there is a risk that they could lose their parliamentary seats if they are made bankrupt. So tell us, you know, what future holds for the WP leaders?
I mean, it's still very early. I think a lot of this is very premature because, first of all, the defendants have a month to appeal the judgment. And even if they don't, or after they do, there's still another trial, like I said, to determine the actual damages.
Okay.
Like I said, it's unlikely they're going to claim the full 33.7 million. In fact, the defendants' lawyers during the trial last year actually said that the maximum amount that they should be, the plaintiffs should be asking is in the ballpark of $620,000.
Okay.
Do you remember last year when the WP MPs actually had a fundraising, so to speak? They actually managed to raise $1 million in 3 days. So even if they have to pay whatever amount, I don't think that figure is going to be the sort of figure that will bankrupt them. So ultimately, whether the judgment will affect the individual WP leaders in the next, in the party, will actually really be known at the next general election, which must be called by which must be held by April 2021.
There you go. Of course, things are still, in its early stages right now, Rachel, right? And we also see a lot of comments right in our comment section as well. Clearly, this is something that everyone is really interested to know what's going to happen next. For more updates on these stories, you can visit our website at straitstimes.com. Once again, thank you so much, Rachel, for coming onto the show to really unpack the case for us right here. Now, moving on, a new 50-hectare green space, Thomson Nature Park, opens today with a novel way of detecting animal movements to boot. Now, it aims to reduce wildlife vehicle collisions along Old Upper Thomson Road. As a buffer park ringing the Central Catchment Nature Reserve, the new park is an important part of Singapore's efforts to conserve its natural heritage and native biodiversity. Now, to share more on the new Thomson Nature Park, I have environment correspondent Audrey Tan. Welcome, Audrey.
Hi, Haranto.
Audrey, this is our second time on TBS, Excited to have you here. Now, first up, Audrey, tell us, how does this new nature park preserve Singapore's wildlife?
So basically, this nature park is situated next to the Central Catchment Nature Reserve, and it's actually connected in terms of the forest canopy. So wildlife often move from one forest to the other because animals, they don't know geographical boundaries. So to help with this connectivity across Old Upper Thomson Road, which is the road separating the Central Catchment Nature Reserve and the new Thomson Nature Park, the authorities have implemented a series of measures along the road. So the first one would be, the most interesting one to me would be the testing out of a new roadway animal detection system. So it's co-funded by the National Parks Board and the Land Transport Authority. And how it works is that it uses CCTV cameras trained on the roads to pick up the presence of animals, for example, the long-tailed macaques or wild boars. And when the camera detects it, there's a computer algorithm which can actually separate, like for example, a wild boar from a human, for instance. So this system would then send an alert to lights underneath a sign that says animals ahead, which will prompt motorists to slow down. So that is one of the, I think, it's the first time that this is being trialled. It's a year-long trial, so we'll see how that goes. But other than that, there are a few other initiatives there, including underground culverts to help ground-dwelling mammals, for example, get across the Old Upper Thomson Road, and also road bridges to help arboreal or tree-dwelling species move from one forest plot to the other.
And so, apart from benefiting the animals, now people also get to enjoy the park. So one of them is, of course, the Rambutan Trail, one of the 5 new trails there. And you've been there. You've been to Thomson Nature Park. In fact, this morning you were there.
I went yesterday also for a mini visit.
So tell us more about this part of the park.
So one unique thing about this nature park is that there's a lot of natural there's historical elements to it too. So it used to be built on the site of an old Hainan village, and now people can still see traces of the village, whether it's like village steps or old artifacts or old wells that have been retained there. Even some of the roads in the old village have been retained, and they are now walking trails for people. So that will be interesting. To me, I found the Rambutan Trail particularly interesting. Actually, it's one of the shortest trails there. But it's because you learn a lot about rambutans, and why rambutans are of interest historically for this area was that Hainan village used to be famous for their rambutans. The traders would come to the village and pay the households maybe $50 to $100 to reserve all the harvests from that particular tree. And this all goes back to this particular villager there who really missed the sweet lychees he had in Hainan village. So he tried to experiment different ways of cultivating rambutans that are as sweet. So I think that turns out, and now you can still see rambutan trees there when they fruit. But it's not for humans, it's for the animals.
Okay, I was just about to ask you, whether do you manage to try the
No,
rambutans?
they weren't fruiting yet anyway.
Right. And of course, LT also has said, right, in your story also, LT has said, do not pluck these fruits.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So make sure that, if you see any fruits, please do not do that. But really, it is something probably, if you don't have any plans for the weekend, probably you might want to head down, yeah?
Yeah, I think it was really very nice, especially if you go in the mornings and it's very cool and quiet inside.
Yeah. So Audrey, of course, looking at this is part of preserving and conserving the wildlife here in Singapore. What are the future plans also to continually preserve the wildlife here and improve wildlife connectivity in Singapore?
So connectivity has been in the spotlight recently. Recently I wrote about how this BTO project in Bukit Batok had caused a forest patch in Bukit Batok to be cleared, and that kind of disrupted a string of forest habitats in the area. So the authorities have new strategies to try to mitigate this, including building a 5-meter landscape stretch. So the importance of connectivity is, firstly, we need to recognize that Singapore's forest landscape is very fragmented already.
Right.
And it's important to help animals move from place to place, because if they don't manage to move out to find mates or to find food, they could become isolated and inbred, which would reduce their resilience to like future stresses like diseases, for example.
Okay. So that's those are some of the ways. Again, thank you so much, Audrey, for coming on to the show. Really, if you're interested to know more about the trails and the new Thomson Nature Park, please read Audrey's pieces, and she has written other pieces as well on wildlife preservation and conservation here in Singapore. You can check all that out on our website at straitstimes.com. Now, moving on to our last segment. Is Singapore finally going to qualify for the FIFA World Cup? Now, Singapore is going to be a part of a joint 5-nation bid to host the 2034 tournament. As of now, the host nations will automatically qualify for the World Cup. Now, to discuss this, I have correspondent David Lee. Welcome, David.
Hi, Harintu.
Now, David, tell us, if ASEAN does make a bid to host the 2034 World Cup, you can expect fierce competition from other countries, including China, Egypt, and joint bidders such as Australia and New Zealand. How strong is this ASEAN bid here?
Right. So, just a bit of background. So, Thailand's Tourism and Sports Minister announced 2 days ago that Thailand would lead a 5-nation bid for the 2034 World Cup. The proposal was agreed at the 5th ASEAN Ministerial Meeting on sports in Manila. So we don't have any concrete details of a bid yet, seeing that it's still far away. As we know, the 2026 hosting rights have already been awarded to US, Canada and Mexico who are co-hosting. So if FIFA decides to open the bidding for the subsequent 2 World Cups at one go, meaning the 2030 and 2034 edition, could mean that ASEAN has to get ready to submit their bid in a couple of years' time. This 5-way joint bid is unique and interesting in the sense that FIFA have been known to want to take the World Cup to uncharted territories, as we've seen with Russia in 2018 and Qatar in 2022.
Which you were at 2018, right? Russia last year.
So that's the strength of ASEAN's bid. So the 5 nations involved, as we've spoken, Thailand, Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia and Vietnam, they are very well connected. It's easily accessible. Traveling within these countries considerably cheap compared to the US. So in terms of infrastructure, there are also enough stadium in these countries to host a 48-team tournament. And there are also plans to spruce up the transport system and airports in these countries. But you say we face stiff competition from the likes of China. If we were to talk about resources, I mean, few in the world can match China, right? They will not spare any expenses. They will pull all the stops. And so the likes of Thailand, Vietnam, Malaysia, and Indonesia will have to consider whether it's worth spending so much for just one World Cup when they are already operating on budget deficits.
Right. Now, so moving on. So, will the country's then football culture be under scrutiny? So, for instance, right, we had a poor spectator turnout at the Brazil versus Senegal match held at the stadium yesterday, and you were there, right? Even with the Brazil football superstar Neymar being here, will we see a similar response, if this bid does go through?
Right, I mean, it was disappointing to see just 20,000 fans turn up in a 55,000 seater. But we have to understand that the Singapore market is relatively small, and the joint bid is different in the sense that it involves 5 countries with a combined population of about 500 million. So the poor turnout last night could be attributed to fatigue. Maybe you can say that we can't have too much of a good thing, because when Brazil last played here in 2014, it was a new national stadium. They haven't come here for a long time, and people are curious about Brazil and national stadium, and there weren't events such as the International Champions Cup, the ICC, which has taken place for a few years now. So now football fans in recent years, they are spoiled for choice. We had the ICC in July. We're going to have Liverpool and Manchester United Masters coming next month. So there's also school exams this month, so it could be just a matter of bad timing for the organisers. But back to the World Cup, I think with Singaporeans typically falling for the novelty factor and it being held at our doorstep, I think they should still be caught up in the fever. But it all depends also on the teams that are playing here. If we get a bid, the teams, if they are obscure, then probably not. But if they are big teams, I think it should still be.
It will draw a crowd, right? And David, of course, last year for the one that happened in Russia, you were there, right? That said, will the successful join, and you've experienced it yourself, how tremendous these celebration, these matches can be. Will the successful joint bid still benefit this Singapore football scene in any way? Okay,
you have to look at all the world-class sporting events that have been held here. So we have had the WTA finals. We still have the Formula 1 race. We still have the ICC. While such events bring the stars here, and there may be a short-term tourism boost, we still have not seen these events groom a world-class tennis player, a world-class race driver, or world-class footballer, for example. But I feel a successful World Cup bid could be a game changer for us, for the local football scene here, especially with the FAS, the Football Association of Singapore, recently announcing their ambition to qualify for the same edition in 2034. It is a long shot, but imagine if we do qualify, if we do the improbable, that will surely galvanize the country in terms of local pride, as well as the inspiring future generations of local footballers. But as with all large-scale projects here, we need the strong backing of the government to achieve both the objectives of qualifying and hosting.
Right. Well, of course, I know it's yet to be seen, because the bid is still in its planning stages. It's still in its infancy stage. Of course, for more of these football-related stories, you can visit our website at straitstimes.com. Once again, thank you so much, David, for coming onto the show to tell us a bit more, really about the possibility of Singapore finally securing a spot in the FIFA World Cup. Now, those were the top stories for the day. For more news and videos, of course, you can head over to our website, that is straitstimes.com. Once again, I'm Haryanto, and thanks for tuning in. Have a good weekend. Join us on Monday for more stories on The Big Story.